My name is Carina Gardner, and I'm what you would call a practical designer. If you're ready to create a life that you love, become an incredible force for good, and generate income while pursuing your dreams, this is the podcast for you. Welcome to Make and Design. Hi, designers. Today I want to talk about design deadlines. Now, I talk a lot in Design Suite about creating your own deadlines, but truthfully, most of us have deadlines kind of already in place. And those of us who are working for licensing or for companies, we have deadlines that always exist. Let me talk to you a little bit about those. So when I was the creative director at Cartabella, there was a wholesale show where we sold our products to shop owners in January. So that meant that all of the lines had to be finished by the first week of December. Usually the last week of November was more ideal, but we were almost always up against the gun to get them done the first week of December. Now, why is that? Okay, why couldn't we have the deadline closer to the show, which was usually the second week of January? And it's because we needed materials made. So for example, we had a catalog that we needed to print 500 to 1,000 of. We had a lot of those. Okay, so the catalog had to be finished with every single line inside of it. So that means every line that we were debuting had to end up in there in its correct format with its correct SKUs with its correct names, all set up and ready to go. And then very often we actually had an example, so a layout made with the line also to go along with it. Well, that's a lot of stuff that has to be done by December 1st, and that need to be printed and ready to go. So the good news is that December actually was still rough because the catalog would be done, but then we had to get the website stuff up and ready to go. We actually needed to make sure and finalize, anything extra, what's going into the trade show booth and all of that good stuff. So we used that month to do that. So we usually started lines for the following year in about June, sometimes as early as May of one year, to make sure all your lines were available and ready to go as of December 1st. And it was usually a lot of lines. We came out with 3 to 4 lines every single month, and we wanted to showcase the first 6 months of the year. So that meant in June, I was designing Halloween and Christmas. And I thought I would talk to you guys about this because we just went over the calendar at Virtual Conference for Design Suite Mastermind members, and they were like, anybody else have trouble designing in a totally different month that, the artwork is not coming out in? And I understand this because in June of every year, I am working on Halloween. It seems like every year, I really don't need to do it until July, but seems like in June, I'm like already thinking Halloween. So I was going to give you a couple of tips and tricks I do for me when you are designing out of season, which to be honest, most of us are or should be, even if you're doing digital. And we went over the digital calendars for, in particular, we have 2 calendars, the SVG calendar, die cutting calendar, and then we have the fabric calendar. And I think by just kind of knowing where everything should be showing up, when it should be arriving in online shops, helps you create new deadlines for yourself, right? Because if you don't get your Halloween stuff out in October, you get it out in September, okay, or August, then you are going to play a little bit differently, right? And that's the way it is all year long. It used to be that you could really come out with most of your stuff in the same month of. December was Christmas, Halloween was October. Over the years, it has changed a little bit. It's even changed in the last 2.5 years since I've owned Design Suite. We've had to make adjustments because the timelines have changed a little bit. Some have moved up and some have moved in. So it's just a matter of playing and being in the field because you start realizing when things are selling the very best. Okay. So I do think those deadlines are really great. So I'm going to tell you my number one trick for tricking myself into thinking that I am in the holiday spirit. And that is, well, there's 2 things. The first one is movies. My kids even are cool with this, but in my office, I generally have, when I'm doing Halloween, I have Halloween movies going. If I'm doing Christmas, I have Christmas movies going. So I'm about 2 or 3 months ahead of a lot of other people digging into the movies, okay? And usually by the time it's rolled around, I'm already moving on to something else. So I'm always off a little bit, and that's okay with me. The second thing is not just movies, but music. So I will have music going in the background. Yes, I will listen to Christmas music way ahead of time, because when I am designing a line, a scrapbooking line, a fabric line, anything, digital products that are ahead of season, I want to feel the way I feel during that season. And one of the best things we can do is inundate our own senses, and that's hearing, seeing. That will get us there. And speaking of senses, that is another thing you can do. A little trick here. So I will tell you, my favorite scent ever is lemon. If you come into my house, lemon scent everywhere. I love the way it smells. I love that it's clean. But if I have to, especially for Christmas, I will totally put on a cinnamon candle. I will put on anything that feels like Christmas tree, just to make me smell and think, basically brainwash myself into thinking that it's that season. I don't think this is a bad thing. If anything, it is probably the most useful thing ever. And it helps me actually, in a very weird way, appreciate the holidays in a different way than most other people. If you wait all year to just do that holiday during that year, then you're only doing it during that time. I get this moment in time when I'm designing stuff for a holiday where I'm listening to the music, I'm watching the movies, I'm lighting candles, and inundating myself with what are the things that actually make this holiday so special. It's a really interesting, go try it. It's an interesting phenomenon, how you can basically create a holiday in the middle of June that exists in October or exists in December. You can recreate it without the snow, without anything else, and get those same feelings, which is very interesting when you really think about it. And I will tell you that over the years, you guys are seeing my design stuff come out. Most of that stuff produced not during the season. In fact, very rarely are they produced during the season. They're usually produced way in advance in a totally different month. And I think tricking yourself into getting into that state so that you can produce ahead of time is a really powerful way to create design deadlines for yourself that will actually be profitable, right? The whole goal is to be profitable so we can make money. But the only way to do that is to be on the timeline that consumers want to buy your products, right? So we need to make sure that we are kind of making sure that we're producing in a way where customers are like, yes, this is the time I'm buying it, right? Not when it's way too late. You're always going to get the last minute buyers, the people who buy, on Christmas Eve. You're still going to get those, right? Those still exist. But in terms of really getting everyone, like getting as many people as possible to buy your products, you have to be on a time schedule that makes sense for customers. So anyway, I hope that helps you. I hope some of you take those tricks and that you use your design deadlines to your advantage. So you have lots of opportunities. A few episodes back, I was talking about the heart and the hunter, really paying attention to the opportunities that are available to you because of what you already have, right? All right, you guys, thanks so much for joining me. I hope that you are, it's February, figuring out next steps in your design business, what you ought to be designing in this season so that you can also be profitable. And I'll see you soon.
Did you know you have access to more free design content, die cut files, and sewing patterns? Join our exclusive VIP group for free by going to designsweetcourses.com/free.